Hi, I'm Bailey Bennett Andrade, DEI Media Marketer. In the following presentation, you will hear from Jerry Briscoe and Martha Gold Lee as they discuss how the work to cultural proficiency begins with an internal examination of self, which ultimately cultivates organizational change, otherwise known as the inside-out process to change.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. My name is Jerry Briscoe, and I am the Director of Professional Learning here at SERC. That's Southeast Regional Resource Center in Alaska. We are Alaska's only educational service agency, and we serve all 54 districts in the state.
And I'm Martha Gould Lee, and I work with Jerry out of the Anchorage office. Our parent office is in Juneau. So we're a satellite office, and we truly do travel the state. Today, our topic is going to be on this inside out work that we have to do. Every single one of us has to do to become culturally proficient. So as we take a look at that inside out look for cultural proficiency, we say, okay, so if I'm looking at myself inside, what is cultural proficiency? What am I aiming to attain? And it really is a worldview, a way a person or an organization makes assumptions for effectively describing, responding to, and planning for issues that arise in diverse environments. And sometimes I say, it's all internal, because when you walk into a different environment, you're taking it all in, and then it's hitting you all at once. So unless you really do this inside out work, you can be derailed very quickly. So as we take a look at that, then at ourselves, the first place we have to start is our beliefs and our belief systems, because our beliefs create us. That's our personality. It's who we are as people. So what is a belief then? Well, I looked on the internet and I found several different definitions, but the one that I really liked is this one. It says a belief is a proposition which may be conscious or unconsciously held, is evaluative in its that it's accepted as true by the individual. You really believe it's true, and is therefore imbued with emotive commitment, which means that it's highly emotionally charged. We really believe what we really believe on different levels, but it can be highly emotionally charged. Therefore, it serves as a guide to how we think and how we behave. So on this inside out work that we're doing, we use the analogy of windows and mirrors. When we look in the mirror, we see ourselves reflected back. Many times we really don't like what we see, but we have to still live with that person. So then that's where the continuum will come in, because unless we change what we don't like, what we see, it colors our windows, the eyes, how we behold the world around us. So in the framework of cultural proficiency, there are 4 tools, and one of them is the continuum. And the continuum is a place where I can personally assess what I believe and where I am in my conversations and my interactions with others. And if I'm on the left side, the left 3 bullets there are 6 bullets. So if I'm on the left side, I'm stuck in the barriers. I can't grow. I'll just keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And that's not any good. But if I want to move, say I want to move to the right so that I can become more culturally proficient, then I have to employ the guiding principles, which is one of the tools also. And then that will help me move along points on the right side so that I can eventually get to the 5 elements of being culturally proficient. So that's an inside out work we all have to do using those tools. And it's not a linear progression. It's a life journey. When we start this, we're going to be old like I am now, or you can be young, and you have to catch your thoughts and say, that's on the left side. I really want to be on the right side. So it's a lifetime journey, and it's a slip and slide. So it truly is an inside reflective process of examining ourselves. So now, Jerry, you're going to talk about how this translates into systemic.
Okay, so thank you, Martha. Before I begin to talk about the inside out process and how that looks in a systemic view, or in an organizational view, I want to go back to something you said. You said if we want to move on the continuum, or if something jogs us, jogs our mind, or jogs an emotion that instills in us that we want to move. And when you said that, it made me think that there has to be a reason for everyone to want to be culturally proficient. Everybody should want to move on that continuum. And it made me think, I truly don't believe, I truly do believe in my heart that there's not one teacher alive who doesn't want to reach and help every student in their classroom, regardless of what their culture is. That is who we are as teachers. We want to help our students. So that means, like you said, that we have to do this inside out process and look at ourselves and why we aren't reaching every student. So looking at ourselves first, like Martha said, that's where we have to start. But beyond that, then we have to move to a systemic view. We have to be looking at our systems, at our organizations. So we need to remember that as we look at this in an individual way, we're analyzing and questioning, how did we arrive at a certain place to hold these certain assumptions and biases and perspectives? Now that's as individuals, but I'm here to ask, how did we arrive at a place where our organization or our institution, our system, arrive at a place where we created policies and procedures that looked only at the dominant culture?
True.
And I think if we look back over time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, we still had diverse student populations, but we weren't being culturally proficient. We weren't responding in ways in our systems to create policies, practices, and procedures that made sure, that ensured equity of access to every student. And so what the beauty for me is of this culturally proficient framework is that it has really raised our awareness. It has given us a way with the 4 tools in knowing how to evaluate our values, our behaviors, our policies, our procedures, our actions, to help us decide what is a barrier, what's something that's getting in our way. So instead of us sitting around and saying, oh, why can't they all be like us? Well, leaders and educators have to instead welcome and create the opportunities to better understand who our students are as individuals, while we are learning how to change all those things about us that helps us interact more positively with them, because they're different from us. We also need to recognize that sometimes our dominant culture has become a culture that oppresses and marginalizes some students, because the dominant culture is a culture of privilege. And we might fail sometimes to understand that those privileges or those oppressive policies and procedures that we have actually impede our students' access to education. Sometimes, like you said, it's unconscious. We're not aware of it. We don't stop to think about it. That's why this inside out process of reflection and analyzing the outcome and the impacts and effects of what we do is so important. So we need to be looking at things like, for example, dress codes, discipline policies, attendance policies, truancy policies, student, family and home communication and engagement practices, even looking at our curriculum.
Right.
What are things that are impeding access to all the opportunities of education that our students need. So what we propose that we think is really important to do in our work is to bring together a broad stakeholder group of students, of families, of teachers, of leaders, of even community leaders, and bring everyone together to start examining school or district policies and procedures and practices, looking for the places where our current policies and such are creating barriers, where some students are not having the access they need. Here's a good example right now during our pandemic. You know, we have learning at home now. Well, we're finding out that we have marginalized students on the fringe who don't have access to internet or don't have access to the proper technical tools that they need. So those students don't have equitable access to all our opportunities. So it's things like that that systemically we look at organizationally. In closing, I just want us to remind ourselves that when we include all those broad stakeholder groups together like that to look at this, we're providing an opportunity of ownership. And when everybody feels like they own it, they're also more committed to the changes that are going to be necessary to ensure that our students have equal access.
And they become more honest.
They do become more honest.
And that honesty means when we look at that continuum, we admit that we slide on it. It's not a linear progression that you're going to start on the left and march, lock, stop, and barrel, and finally end up at the right. We're sliding.
Yeah.
And it's a life journey. So very, very important.
And another thing, Martha, that I thought of too when you were saying that is it takes a lot of courage.
It does.
A lot of honest courage to admit that we have created some institutional barriers that are creating a lack of access for our students.
And that's really true. And as Aristotle said in closing, courage is the first of all the virtues, because if you don't have the courage to start the journey, you're never going to move.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
So thank you all for joining us today.